I want to hear the man speak. We are so often force-fed this like filtered version of the news.
But the problem is Americans don't want to form their opinion. They want to be told what their opinion is.
I may be an out-of-touch New York City liberal, but I know my country, and the man is too short to be president.
70% of their advertisement revenue comes from big pharma. By the way, please, who named it caucus? No.
All right, we just lost all legitimacy there. Now we can't have a serious conversation.
Sorry. Well, it's official. We're alive. We're humans. We've been verified by the almighty Meta.
Yes.
Why was that so hard? I just was a little confused why it was so hard to give them money.
That's what I said to you. I was like, why the hell do I have to work so hard to pay these guys $15 a month? And we didn't even want it that bad.
No.
Let me be like the first to. I'm not the first to say this, but I will overtly come out and say that it's really stupid. The blue check mark is really stupid. You could have 10 followers, I think, very few anyway, and just pay to be blue check marked. Like but it still works. Like when you're looking at comments, when you're looking at incoming messages, you're more inclined to open the ones and look at the communication from a blue check mark. I don't know why. It just is what it is. But
you see me? I'm an OG blue check mark. I have one from 2013, but I got it the old school way, and that was literally I showed up one day and it had a blue check mark near my Facebook name, but they wouldn't give it to me on Instagram.
After like a casting couch session, or like what's the old-fashioned way?
No, like literally, I didn't do anything. Someone verified me.
You should file a police report. Someone verified you without your consent?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, it's goofy, but as we're trying to grow our channel and stuff, I think it.
Well, it gives validity. People legitimately, you're verified, and it's like, no, it's not what it used to be.
Well, here's what it does. It separates the people who are casually using social channels for amusement and consumption from those that are treating it like a business and posting regularly. And at the very least, like, care enough about the people that follow them and care enough about the content they put out to pay $15 a month. And I think that, in and of itself kind of differentiates a little bit.
Well, and as our channel grows, I wanted people to know that, like, no, this is us. This is official. Yeah. And walk me through the process, because you actually did it, and I didn't get a chance to do it.
We haven't talked about this, but I did find out that it's there's a separate process for businesses. Like, that was part of our problem, is that we are the Chasing Mountains podcast on socials, and you need to be. It's really, the blue check mark is really kind of supposed to be set up for like an individual. So they have stipulations on like how your photo looks. So we had to get rid of our branding, as or where it says the Chasing Mountains podcast on the
I had to
circle.
Photoshop a picture of Dave and I way too close together to fit. What was interesting is you and I don't have a photo of each other together. We don't have any.
That's by design.
Well, I had to go originally and find a picture of you that your wife took of you sitting on the couch. And I cut that one out, took a picture of me from my family photos, and spliced them together, both of us awkwardly, like, it's not great.
Yeah, I'm surprised you didn't just AI it the way you like to just create AI images all the time.
So the AI images of me, they don't look right. Something's weird. Like, it does a good job of you.
Yeah, they're AI. They're not real.
Well, it looks good. Like, yours looks like, oh my God, that looks like Dave. But like my
really?
AI, my AI photos always make me look like I'm evil, and I don't like it. It's always got like one of those little smirks that go too far up on the side.
I think AI always sees who's deep down.
You shut up. They see me as the villain because I want AI gone. Not really. Man. I love it.
Yeah, we've got our concerns, though. Can I tell you about some crazy things in my life this week?
Yeah. What happened?
First off, my wife has me on a parasite cleanse.
Oh, shit.
Have you ever done one of those before?
No, but I've been around a bunch of people who have done it, and they're insufferable people when they're on it.
Yeah, well, so for those that don't know, just quick backstep and backstory. Our wives have a podcast, and it's Under the Sun podcast. Our wives, Ilea and Irene, and It's very good. It's awesome. It's not our podcast. Our podcast is like a bunch of just kind of like hodgepodge random dude stuff, but theirs is very. It's quite focused on. What would you say, Jake? Like
Health, wellness, anti-government, anti-taxes. Allegedly is their biggest word.
Right. There's some conspiracies thrown in there. There's but generally speaking, it is holistic health and wellness for families and for women. Primarily is kind of their whole thing. But part of that conversation is parasites and countermeasures for parasites. And they've actually done some really good podcasts. Some particularly in the last, few months? When did they have the Worm Queen on?
They had the Worm Queen lady, was it about 2 months ago? And they had a couple shorts that got either millions or hundreds of thousands of views. And
it was a lot.
It starts off with worms. And then they go into talking about butt worms. And like, I love my wife, but the amount of butt worm talking that she does, I feel like that should have been like, hey, by the way, like God should have warned me before I married her that, oh, by the way, she's going to talk a lot about parasites and butt worms.
Yeah, my wife is Jacob's sister, by the way.
Yeah.
And my wife often asks me, like, she'll say, did you ever think when you married me that we would spend so much time talking about butt worms and parasites? And I thought, I'm like, I didn't think we'd spend any time talking about butt worms and parasites.
That was like, not at all. It was that we're not supposed to talk about it at all.
But anyway, now, specifically, these days, we're talking about my butt worms and parasites that are supposedly there. I haven't seen any yet, but I am in the thick of, like, what is this, day 4? So I'm in the die-off phase. And so I'm feeling it. I'm not where I die off, but where the parasites die off.
Yeah, apparently there's a lot of parasites in our body. And apparently some TikTok video went viral where a woman was having brain surgery and they pulled out a parasite that was in her brain. And that one freaked me out a little bit. And,
was it TikTok?
It might have been
was TikTok the parasite that was in her brain? That's
my
what I'm trying to
TikTok
get at.
is a parasite.
We joke about it, but it's legitimate stuff. Like there's lots and lots of evidence and studies that suggest that not only that these parasites are thriving in most human bodies, but that we can take measures to reduce the population in our body. And our wives speak much more, I wouldn't say eloquently, because they say things like butt worms, but they speak with a lot more authority on the matter. So people should check that podcast out if you have any interest in it. It's Under the Sun podcast.
Well, a lot of it too is like, I feel like my wife comes up to me and she's like, take this. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I'll take it. Too. And I'm like, are you trying to murder me?
I know. We've talked for a long time how like if she wanted to kill me, she could. But what I'm taking right now, it's like these three potions from it comes in a kit from Rogers Hood Apothecary. That's who our wives interviewed, and we should put the link in our description. So if anybody wants to check it out and try it out, I can't really vouch for it. What I can say is that it's doing things. It's working. I feel like I said, it's only a day 4 or 5. I can tell it's doing some stuff, but it's, I believe, a 30-day like cleanse. So I need a little more time to report back on.
Well, I do know for a fact, though, that like people who have gone through that parasite cleanse have tried calling me and tried sending me pictures of parasites that they passed while pooping. And I'm like,
my wife, your sister,
your sister, my wife, Dave Little. Like, I'm like, for the love of God.
Your sister. I don't have a sister.
Well, my sister. But for the love of God, I'm like,
Dave Little loves sending photos.
Don't send me a picture of your parasites that came out your poo. But dude, I guess we're riddled with them. Like,
yeah, well, here in the West, like we don't really address it, which is weird. Like I think we have the attitude that, we are a first world nation, some of the best hygiene standards in the world, supposedly, allegedly. But most other countries around the world have a sort of unofficial parasite protocol, or like it's pretty typical around the world to do a parasite cleanse like every 6 months or at least annually. And we just don't do that here in the States. So, and I've never done one before. So
Yeah, they did one
it's interesting.
they did a short that they were talking about the parasite that you get from cats.
Oh
Where if
yeah,
you have
toxoplasmosis.
Toxoplasmosis. It's legit. And
It's cat scratch fever. That's what it is.
it's legit. I can speak
Yeah.
to this a lot because I had an aunt who was actually, well, it was my father's aunt, so a great aunt. She hoarded like 50 cats in her family home. And it was a family, like estate that they had built over the last like 100 years. And she had inherited like the money and she basically squandered it on her cats. And it got so bad that her basement was basically the litter room. She would just pour out litter, and the cats would poop in there. When she did pass away, basically they had to go into the house, remove all the dead cats that were in the basement underneath. Like she basically had the antithesis, the peak of cat scratch fever. And
So that actually is a really good segue into some other news in my life. Animals pooping in your house that you don't want to poop in your house. Which actually I didn't. Well, right now there's a sick rooster in our bathroom downstairs.
what?
Who is crapping. He's in a cage, but it smells awful in there. Yeah, man. Well, it's like, so this week has been incredibly cold. We just celebrated your wife's birthday over the weekend. I mean, it was like -9 the day that we all got together, I think, right?
Yeah.
So we have, for those that don't know, my wife and I have 23 birds on our property. We keep them they're in a nice big coop that actually used to be a horse stall, but it's still, they're very cold. And he's got some other stuff that he's been dealing with. My wife's been treating him with like everything possible, but he's just not doing so hot. And so now he's hanging out in our house. So hopefully he doesn't have something deadly, but
You're on a detox for parasites. So you're actively checking your poo
and now
for
we're
parasites.
bringing animals with parasites in their poo probably in our
And
house.
it's like -12 outside.
Yeah. So then another fun update involving animals, possibly parasites. Someone hit a deer outside our house the other night.
Oh yeah, I heard, dude. Yeah, I
yeah.
know nothing about this. What?
Yeah, so I told you it happened, but I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't go into detail. So, it was just an experience. So, like, I'm not a hunter, but I know that's not because I'm against it or anything. I'm like into guns and firearms and shooting and everything, and I'm friends with lots of hunters. I just have never. I fish a lot, but never have actually gone hunting. Instead, apparently, my trophy is roadkill. As of lately, we live out in the country, as you know, and there was a quite elderly gentleman who was driving his big SUV. He hit a deer basically like right just off of our property and killed it. And it was a doe, like full grown doe. And police came out, filed a report for his insurance purposes. And I have friends who hunt, so I knew that they might be interested in, getting the deer. So I said, yeah, I'll take it. Plus I wanted to get this guy out of the road. Like there's people flying by. It was very cold that night. He was very old. His phone wasn't working. So like I gave him mine and he's like, it was not the best situation. There's like this deer in the road. We're in the road. Like, so I went and like got him. I loaded the deer up into my truck and I just told him to drive just like another 200 feet, into my driveway and we'll just wait for the police there. And so we did, and they handled it and took off. And then I called my friends who I thought would want it. And turns out they're completely, like they had gone hunting and they got more than their fill. They had been giving some venison, deer meat to friends and family and everything. So they couldn't take it. And so it's like, well, all right. So what do I do now with this deer? And they told me I could take it to Alwyn and Sons, which is a meat processing facility near us. Jake, you know them probably.
Oh, yeah.
I took the deer there that next morning, and I just left it it was very cold that night, so I just left it in my truck and it was fine. And I kind of thought that I should probably field dress it, but I just, again, like
You
it wasn't like I
didn't.
was,
Oh.
I didn't.
Oh, I was like, How the hell do you, what?
No, so I didn't, because like, it's not like I had gone hunting. Like I did not plan for this to happen. I actually had planned to spend like the evening with my family, and I had already spent too much time dealing with this guy and the deer and making some phone calls and all this stuff. So, you know, my buddy was like, hey, you're probably fine. It's really cold. Just take it up there in the morning, like 10 hours from now, and you'll be fine. So I did, and I get it all the way there and find out that they won't take it unless it's field dressed. And I still got to get to work that next morning. So I come home, I take the deer in our backyard. It's cold, it's snowy, obviously, and I've never done this before. I watched like 2 YouTube videos, and I grab one of my big hunting knives and go out and field dress the thing. And it actually
Based
was
off
not
of 2 videos?
actually it was just one video, but
David.
but it was interesting. It was a very interesting experience.
Was it frozen?
So this is the good and bad of it. And I need people watching or listening. I need you to weigh in on this. If you're a hunter or if you know anything about this, because here was the result. Okay. So much of the deer was frozen. As I got inside though, this is where it gets a little graphic. So like, if you're not into this, you can skip ahead, but, there was still a little bit of warmth, like in the abdominal cavity of this deer. Like when I got in there, and I just put on gloves and stuff because, like, well, for a few reasons. So there's no reason to like expose yourself to anything if
parasites.
Some of that stuff, yeah. So, but I mean, I'm in there, and it was still like kind of steaming inside the abdomen, and as I'm pulling things out and everything, and which again was kind of an experience, but. Typically, my understanding is that the idea is you field dress the deer right away so that it doesn't, because it can spoil the meat, and you don't want all that heat and warmth in there for very long. And so, but it was still so cold out. But anyway, so field dressed it, got blood all over in the snow. We decided that night, what we could keep was the heart and the liver. So we decided to cook that and prepare that and eat it.
Did you already eat it?
We already ate it. It was not good. It was not good at all. I think because it sat for too long.
Yeah.
I'm glad we didn't get, some kind of food poisoning or anything, but like it's actually quite gross now that I think about it, that like
it's very gross.
That the liver just sat in that like warm deer's abdomen for 12 hours, 10 hours. And, but
there's going to be so many comments that are just like, this dumb motherfucker. Like,
so here's an interesting thing. I wanted to share this with you. I found this very interesting. My buddy told me when I called him, he's like, hey, actually still here. I'll just share this with everybody. The deer was not killed right away when it was hit. It was dying. And, but it was definitely not living its best life in that moment. Like it needed to die and be done. And so I was on the phone with my wife, who was back at the house, and I told her to bring my gun down because I was just going to shoot it and kill it, and like because this thing was certainly going to die, and didn't want to prolong it. And so it didn't happen, thankfully, because as I found out later on the Illinois Department of Natural Resources website, you're not allowed to do that. It's illegal to do that. You cannot shoot a deer, even if it's been hit. It's for a few reasons, but I think it's mainly because then it becomes difficult to prove that you didn't shoot it first. And I think also they just don't want people discharging weapons in a variety of directions, killing deer and everything. But so I didn't know that. Like I would have broken that law first off. Secondly, they call it a salvage deer. So if you actually hit a deer, you get first rights to that deer. So if there's anybody else around or whatever, like if you're the one that hit it, you get the first say as to whether you want to keep it. But whether it's you or whether it's somebody else who comes along, like in my case, I was like second on the scene. You still have to file a salvage deer like permit or form or whatever on the DNR website. So you have to say basically, hey, here's what happened, here's when it happened, I'm claiming this deer, and they issue you a number and you print it and you have it so that you can take it to get it processed. And if you get stopped as you're taking it to get it processed, again, you can say like, I have rights to this deer. I've filed the paperwork.
That is way too much paperwork for a hit deer.
Yeah. So here's what's crazy though. I found this very weird. As I'm reading the requirements, there's very few. One is that you be like, in order to do this, in order to fill out paperwork, to literally salvage roadkill and like take it and go get it processed. Like this is not a high bar. Like it's not like, you know, what are the requirements to kill the fattened calf or to shoot like, you know, I don't know, a Siberian tiger. Like this is roadkill that will sit there and rot on the roads of Illinois. But you have to be a resident of the state, and this is the crazy part. You can't be behind on child support. Like that, and I read that and I'm like, what? That's the most random. Also, like, if you're already behind on child support, like you're probably not in the best place in life. Like things probably aren't going your way. So like, if you want to eat a salvage roadkill deer, like for crying out loud, like just you know, let the poor person eat. Not the poor person, but I mean, like, let that person eat their salvage deer. And anyway, so this is all like new experience for me.
But one of the first things in the story of Robin Hood, one of the kings was trying to starve out the people, and he made it illegal to hunt in his woods. And he happened to own all the land. So basically hunting was illegal. So the only place you could buy food was through his approved and taxed ways. So not to say it's much different, but
well, and I don't know.
I happen to know somebody who spent time in jail for shooting a deer on their property and eating it. And they were very financially broke. So he couldn't afford like good lawyers. You know.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, it's like, I get it. I understand it in a lot of ways, but at the same time, the idea that I, like a responsible gun owner who knows what I'm doing, couldn't drag that deer out of the road, in the dark. Like, it's not like anyone would see me brandishing a weapon or something, but the idea that I couldn't drag it over. I know where the gas line and the electric line is on my property and stuff. Like and we have, 3 acres. We've got, I could kill this deer safely. But I'm not allowed to. And again, I'm glad I didn't, because there would have been some explaining to do when the police showed up and there was a bullet hole in the skull.
So I have a little bit of a
deer.
story. Have I told you the one about my scenario with hitting a deer? And well, let me tell you.
I don't know if you.
So
this wasn't recent, right?
No, it was back when I was about 15 years old, and I'm with my grandpa, and he's just a rough, tough, like backwoods man, like smart, brilliant. Well, we're heading back from someplace, and his 2 sons, who happen to be cops, are behind us. My grandpa's going along, and all of a sudden, my grandpa goes, "Brace yourself." And then, boom, we hit a deer. It takes the deer's legs and just crushes them, shoots that animal way above us, over our vehicle, just on the ground, just flopping around, trying to get up with its broken legs. And before we can even open the doors, my 2 uncles were out of their car, ran around our car, had shot that thing twice in the head. And then they said, "Jake, grab a leg." And I've been grabbing a leg, shake it like this. And we throw it in the back of their truck, slam it up, and we're already off on the road. My grandpa's car was like leaking antifreeze. And I'm just sitting there like, what the just happened? And we get back, my uncle hands me a knife and goes, "Cut it." And we just started. That's my first time field dressing an animal. We skinned it and they ate it, like, I think the following day. So
see, and that's
Oklahoma. So I don't know if that was legal or not, but there's 2 cops.
But I mean, and here's the thing about the law. It has to apply to everyone. Like, and so for that reason, sometimes the laws are really stupid.
Yeah.
And
now, mind you, in Oklahoma at that time, it could have been completely legal. They may have known, but I just thought it was interesting. Before I'd even gotten out of the car, there was 2 bullets in the head of that animal. Because number one, its legs were just spaghetti, the way we hit it. Yeah. So it was pretty sad.
Yeah, it's no good. I mean, it's like deer are, big, beautiful, athletic animals, but like here in Illinois, in the Midwest, there are times of the year where they are a nuisance, and they're a big danger. Like, they're a big danger too. Like, Ilea worked on the what's it called? Like in another life, she worked as a nursing assistant, I guess. Man, I haven't thought about this in a while. I forget the name of what it's called. CNA. CNA?
CNA.
She was CNA. And there was a young guy like driving his big pickup truck, which you think would protect him. And he hit a deer, I guess a big buck that went up on the truck and through the windshield and broke his spine, right here. Sorry, I'm banging on my mic. And paralyzed him from, from there down.
Wow.
And I mean, just awful. And like she, still like remembers just the feeling so bad for this poor guy. But anyway, deer. Yeah. So they're sometimes a problem, but I got a bunch of deer meat out of it. Well, I will this week. They're processing it. I can tell you, like I said, the heart and the liver were not good. So it's probably because it sat for too long, but
Yeah.
because I've heard that they can be good, but I think hopefully the meat will still be good.
Let's segue to Instagram versus YouTube.
Yeah, let's go talking about deer.
Yeah, no, it's a good topic. I know so little about it. I do want to actually go hunting. I know so little about it. I don't know where, when, how. So I'm gonna have to hook up with some buddies. But
Well, I know I don't make a compelling case, but we'll have you try some deer.
I'm sure I will try. It's always gamey, They usually work in a little bit of like cow fat to kind of help it out. But no, I want to talk about like YouTube versus Instagram. We did something that we don't normally do, which is obviously talk about political things. We normally talk about business. We normally talk about just like things we find fun. But we had the opportunity of going and speaking to a candidate for presidency, Dr. Roland Roberts. And we talked to him about just like life policies and got to talk about actually the border crisis going on right now. And I was amazed. We post two places. We post on YouTube and then we go around and we post on Instagram, usually the same exact things. I'm telling you, YouTube squashed the hell out of that entire project. We did a bunch of shorts, a bunch of clips, and a podcast. And I'm telling you, the same short that we put on YouTube got like 12 views or 70 views. But then you go over to Instagram and it says, 190 or, 170,000. Now, we don't normally on YouTube get short views. We've got a cumulative, like 35 million views on YouTube shorts?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Even random shorts, I mean, tend to get several thousand. Like it's kind of unusual that a short would not get at least several thousand, and some of them get a lot more than that. But
yeah, it's rare for us to, like if something hits 100,000, we're like, cool. If something hits, 10,000, it's like whatever. But like when something gets 12 or 17 or 70, so we even went as far as like taking the post down and like maybe trying different hashtags and reposting them. Nope, same thing, squashed. So basically I'm getting to the point where it is kind of frustrating where you can obviously see when YouTube's algorithm squashes things they don't want you to talk about. I don't know if it was particularly that this guy was running for president. I don't know if it was just basically they didn't like the topic of talking about the border and how they're coming in. It's getting to the point where it's pretty frustrating. Like we're even having comments or that are hidden from us of very true factual things or anything about Biden in general, anything talking negatively in a sense of saying he's too old. Those get hidden. And I find that weird.
The comment, here's the comment that was hidden, which is, there was two of them and we found it very weird. So we'll just share it here. We're airing the dirty laundry. Regardless of how you feel about like whatever candidate, whether you're a Trumper or a Biden fan, this shouldn't be hidden no matter who the subject is. But someone commented, senile Joe is a disgrace. No vulgarities, no, I mean, it's an observation about one of the most important political figures in the world, you know, and not just in our country. I mean, if you're the president of the United States, you are the leader in many ways of the free world. And, you know, to say senile Joe is a disgrace, like that's...
Why is that hidden?
For one thing, he's very old. And most people, you know, can see that he is not the same Joe as he was 10 years ago, nor should he be. Like, the guy is very old. I wouldn't expect that of my family or friends. That happens when you get old, and he's very old. And, but like, we unhid the comment, because it's like, that shouldn't be silenced. Like, we really don't edit our comment section, aside from, like, we leave on like the moderate filtering that, you know, that these channels, like YouTube has a moderate filter or whatever. But like, for the most part, like, people voice their opinions, and they can voice their opinions, and we like that, and others can comment on it.
Even when
like,
they talk trash about us.
I don't care if they would have said senile.
Yeah.
If you said senile Trump is a disgrace, like, that shouldn't be hidden. Like, that's it's problematic to me. Like, when you talk
We've had
election,
people talk about Trump poorly on our own stuff, and those never get like censored. So it's weird to see it in the algorithm of, like, I know people can have their opinions who work at YouTube and all that stuff, but why do they pick one side versus the other?
Well, and that's like when people talk about election interference.
God, it feels like it, man.
It's a problem when it feels like, and there's some degree of evidence that we have experienced and that others have experienced, that there is a filtering system that kind of goes one way. And it's interesting. They talk about it, and like, there's a setting, people don't realize this in Instagram, a lot of them don't. There's a setting in Instagram that you can change, and they call it, let's see, they call it reduced by fact checking. It's called reduced by fact checking. And they say content reduced by fact checking has been reviewed by independent fact checkers, I'm sure, and found to contain false or partly false information, altered content, or missing context. I have a problem across the board with independent fact checkers. I would like to do my own fact checking. I don't need somebody else to editorialize and to tell me, you know, whether what I'm reading is legitimate or not. I can make that assessment on my own. I understand maybe some people can't, but like, it's a problem when these tech companies are filtering the information that we receive, especially when most people are under the impression that you know, these platforms are a free flow of ideas and a free flow of information. Like, if you the default on Instagram is reduced, is to be reduced by fact checking. So it says this content, like, if it's been reduced, the content itself, it says this content may be moved lower in your feed, so you're less likely to see them. We may also show a notice with more details on the bottom of this content, or as an overlay where they say things like context or whatever. And that's by default. You have to actually tell it, don't reduce, in order to see things that, and again, the problem is, like, how objective is it really? Because for a long time, let's just take like COVID as an example. Again, I don't care how you feel about COVID, but there's been some pretty dramatic pivots in the story of COVID-19 as we've gone along, as you reflect. People forget because we have 10-second memories, but like, you know, originally with COVID, you had to stand, you know, 6 feet apart. That was the big thing, 6 feet apart. And now Anthony Fauci's come out pretty recently, within the last few weeks, and said it was basically arbitrary. Like, 6 feet apart was not based in science. It was kind of made up, but like, people took that as the Bible. Like, 6 feet was like the go-to. Companies and big corporations spent millions of dollars putting those stupid little stickers on the floor, telling people 6 feet apart, 6 feet, social distance, this and that.
Yeah, everywhere we go, you could see them on the floor, the stickers of 6 feet apart. And I always call them the scars of COVID.
Yeah. And then there was, you know, there was lots of information spread about the usefulness of masks and how masks were critical. And then as time went on, it was like, well, actually, they're not doing as much as you know, we originally sort of advertised that they would be doing. I mean, it's just been like one thing after the next. Even like the origination of the virus, you weren't allowed to speak the lab leak theory, and now it's pretty much accepted that it leaked from a lab and from China, and
yeah, it's almost like nobody knows the fact that they were studying that exact coronavirus with bats in Wuhan, next to like.
I kept wanting to say Wu-Tang, the Wu-Tang Clan hideout in China.
Yeah, but bro, like even in the beginning, I was like, hold up a second. So there's a facility that studies this right next to where they think it was released from, and nobody thinks, how did it become racist to say that it came from China or it came from a lab leak? I was so confused, and it was very frustrating.
Yeah, and and then even like when it comes to what's it called, the antiparasitic, the horse dewormer. You took that. What's that called?
Ivermectin.
Ivermectin. Do you want to in a second talk about ivermectin? But basically, it's just the whole point though being like people were ridiculed and villainized over all this stuff.
Yeah.
And with enough time, eventually, like the story becomes, that was pretty much right all along. Yeah, that was pretty much right. And I'm like, these are not conspiracies. Like, look this up. If you disagree with this, not you, Jake, but like anybody listening or watching, like, look these things up. The evidence is there. Like this is no longer, if you haven't checked back into this stuff or this content in a while, this is no longer being disputed. Like it's being accepted that this is the case. But talk about your experience. You had COVID.
I got COVID twice. One time, not a problem. Got through it rather easy. Second time, not a big deal. But then I had been working like 15, 20 hours, like straight on a project, get a little bit of sleep, get back up, get a little bit more sleep, get back up, get back to work. But
that's how you operate.
That is how I binge work. I work like a bunch in a couple days and then I take a week off. But no, this particular one, a buddy of mine said, hey man, will you please come film my wedding? And I was like, absolutely, love you, bro. I don't do weddings. I hate weddings. So I'm actually rather sick and just not feeling well. Which
just like as a broad concept, like you just hate weddings and marriage. Like
filming weddings.
Why are you such a curmudgeon?
It's too stressful. It's too stressful. I love weddings, but I hate filming them. Anyways, they had all just got their boosters, and and so everybody's coughing and sneezing. And anyways, I got a full dose of whatever they had just got, and unbeknownst to me, I have a pretty bad heart issue that I didn't know that I had. And anyways, this round of COVID got me, and it got me good, and it put me in the bed. I was having legit hard time breathing. And it was like a week or two in on this, and I was just like, all right, I gotta seriously go to the doctor because I'm afraid that like I might actually, not be able to breathe from this thing. So I went to the doctor, and the doctor looked at me and goes, okay, I don't know your political leaning, and he was nervous, but he's like, I'm gonna ask you something. Would you consider ivermectin? And I'm like, I was confused. I was like, my political leanings? I'm like, bro, if this shit works, if this works, give it to me. And he goes, well, it's actually, it's kind of hard to get. Anyways, he goes, come back tomorrow. He snuck us in the back door of his facility. No joke. And he's a wonderful guy, but they were closed. And he was just like, I'm going to prescribe this to you. I'm going to check you out. And then he goes, here's basically the prescription. And it was like $40. And I was pretty skeptical with it. Anyways, I went home, took it. Within 12 hours, I felt amazing. And I was pretty
That's all
damn
it took?
sick.
12 hours?
Yeah, 12 to 24 hours. And I was just like, well, why the hell didn't I take this like a week ago? And then after that is when I really found out that everybody was like, oh, it's a horse dewormer. I was like, if it is, that shit works really good.
Even how we treated COVID initially by putting people almost immediately on ventilators. Mm-hmm. Again, the evidence has come out since that was probably not the appropriate way to be treating. Yeah. While it worked for some, it was the wrong course of action for a lot. Mm-hmm. And, we don't know these things until we know them. Mm-hmm. It takes time. It takes evidence. It takes an honest assessment of the results, and sometimes an aggressive search for evidence, an aggressive investigation to happen afterwards, because sometimes some of those details people don't want to let out there. But I guess what I'm trying to get at is it's a big problem when these social channels put themselves in the position of filtering information and enforcing certain communication behaviors when we don't objectively know a lot of things. Like there's a lot of stuff. Like Google just put out, for those of us that are creators on YouTube, Google just sent out an email to all creators. We're one of many that got this email that basically it was a very long, very wordy email that essentially said, in the event of some unexpected...
You got to read it.
You want me to read it?
Pull it up. Let me tell a story real quick while you pull this up.
I'll pull it up.
Because the verbiage, Dave, is just ridiculous and obscure.
I'll read the whole thing.
Okay. Let me, do you mind if I tell you a story real quick based on kind of...
No, go ahead. Okay. I got 5% battery though, so...
Okay, let me be real quick then. I, on Instagram, Twitter, and all those things, I like to follow a little bit of everybody. I follow President Joe Biden. I also follow the real Donald Trump. I follow Kamala Harris. And I also follow like Ted Kennedy. And then I'll also follow someone like Jordan Peterson. Okay.
Ted Kennedy?
Tim Kennedy, excuse me.
Oh, Tim Kennedy. I was to say Ted Kennedy, I'm not sure is alive.
No, Tim Kennedy.
Yeah.
Anyways, here's the issue though. Okay. I would always see stuff from Biden, always see stuff from Kamala. And then one day I realized I don't see anything from Jordan Peterson, Joe Rogan. I don't even see anything from like just any of the conservative people. And then I believe it was you or Leah, my sister, that sent me a link to turn off that fact check or suppression thing you just told me about that Instagram did. Anyways, I went in, turned it off, and instantly I started seeing Joe Rogan post. I started seeing Tim Kennedy post, Jordan Peterson. So it's like they were 100% favoring the left versus the right. 100%.
Yeah, well, it's because I think, so just speaking, again, this is speaking broadly of what I have observed about our nation and our political parties. Again, we're not, we are inherently not a political show, but we tend to be talking about it a lot lately, and that's going to happen some. It's
because it's freaking making us frustrated that I love to hear everybody's opinion, but when I know someone's squishing down someone else's opinion, sometimes I have an opinion that's stupid, ignore it. It's just, I'll ignore a dumb opinion if I see it too. So why do I need to suppress it?
Yeah. Well, I have noticed that people on the right tend to question authority. They question anything that has too quick of an answer, and too certain of an answer. And I have found that for myself, that tendency in myself to question, do we have all the information? Is this case closed? Do we know everything? That tendency has increased tenfold over the last several years because of all the things that I've talked about, all these things that
the
that
CDC
were,
was telling people, don't do your own research, trust the scientists. And when someone says, don't do your own research, I'm like, excuse me? That's what you've been telling us our entire lives is don't just trust face value, do your research.
Yeah. And I mean, there's evidence that the U.S. government, the CDC, was partnering at high levels with social media channels, content channels to, in the name of public health, to reduce and limit certain information, fact check information. And again, my whole point is stuff that was fact checked or more context provided or even outright suppressed in the early days of COVID or along the way, just some sort of new piece of information that immediately, certain people of a certain persuasion wanted to jump on and suppress and say, no, this is wrong. Don't get that word out there. With enough time, we have come to realize it wasn't wrong. this word should have gotten out a long time ago. Because like that, there's big consequences to that misinformation. And again, misinformation is different than disinformation, where you're actively trying to confuse or, confuse people or convolute the real message or the truth. Misinformation is it's a mistake. It's a misunderstanding. It's not knowing what we're dealing with. And I think we are, as a society, many of us are way too quick to determine, yep, it's as simple as it looks, and it's exactly what we think it is. And so therefore, we can make these broad policies and broad assumptions and implement it basically as law that you do or not do that thing, when it's hubris. Like we're playing God in those situations and assuming that we have all the facts. Like COVID, the idea that we could respond to COVID with any kind of effectiveness and accuracy, in terms of like policy making, and not even just policy making, but the way that we view our fellow human being and judge our fellow human being on how they responded and reacted to it. I know it was a scary time, and it's easy to armchair quarterback looking back at it now, but we're still learning about COVID and the response of the pharmaceutical companies. There's a lot, and I'm sure this whole conversation, the social channels are going to apply more context is needed, and we probably won't show up because we'll be reduced and suppressed over this topic. But
well, we did that last time. We actually said something negative towards China and towards Joe Biden for 30 days exactly. We went from 1.5 million views a month on average, because we had some stuff going pretty viral at the time, to about 10,000 views a month. And you could see it going like this for about 30 days. And after that, back up to 1.2 million views a month. And then all of a sudden, magically, here's another 5,000 or 6,000 more subscribers. And it's just like, it's very clear in the algorithms that they were slapping us small channel on the wrist. And to that, I say, fuck you. And that makes me mad. And that's why, you know what? I'm okay if they suppress the channel. It is what it is. This is not my job. I don't, I want people to see it, but also fuck you, man.
No, I know. Like so kind of on this same, well, let me read this. And then I want to talk about, the Iowa caucus was last night. I want to talk about the news coverage. I got real heated.
This is a switch. Okay, go ahead.
Ilya can say, no. So I'm going to read Google's email though, because we've been talking about that. So I got this pulled up. I'm going to read it really fast. Stick with me, but I want people as they listen to this to think about some of the implications. And
this is for advertisements on YouTube as well as
advertisers,
and also probably will soon apply to people producing content.
Yep. For now, it's advertisers, but think about Israel, Hamas. Think about Russia, Ukraine. Think about the 2024 U.S. election. There are some things. China, anything having to do with China. There's a lot going on in the world right now, and so hear that with this context. Dear advertiser, in February 2024, Google will update the inappropriate content policy to clarify the definition of sensitive events. A, quote, sensitive event is an unforeseen event or development that creates significant risk to Google's ability to provide high quality, relevant information and ground truth, whatever the hell that is, and reduce insensitive or exploitative content in prominent and monetized features. During a sensitive event, we may take a variety of actions to address these risks. By the way, a sensitive event would have easily been COVID. That's another area too.
But also sensitive to who?
Well, that's the problem.
One thing I'm sensitive towards, you're not sensitive towards, Dave. So I don't understand who's picking. Is it AI or is it some guy named George? Like, don't like it. Who's
particularly sensitive.
Yeah, he's very sensitive.
It says, here we go. Examples of sensitive events include events with significant social, and I didn't skip ahead. I'm picking up right where I left off. Examples of sensitive events include events with significant social, cultural, or political impact, such as civil emergencies, natural disasters, public health emergencies, i.e. COVID, terrorism.
It doesn't say i.e. COVID on there, does it?
No, I said that, sorry.
Go ahead.
Terrorism and related activities, conflict, or mass acts of violence. So basically like anything, any geopolitical, anything. That's an enormous list. However, it says examples of what we prohibit, and this is non-exhaustive, they say. Products or services that exploit, dismiss, or condone the sensitive event. They're very vague and weird about this, including price gouging or artificially inflating prices that prohibits or restricts access to vital supplies.
Which
Sale of-
price gouging, I don't want people doing
if
that.
it is in fact price gouging, though,
Yeah, that's wrong.
At some point, if you have, if you have some sort of vital supply and you have 5 of them and 100,000 people need them, like at some point,
That's supply and demand.
that's just, it's economics. Yeah. But let's see. Restricts access to vital supplies. These are all still things that are prohibited. Sale of products or services which may be insufficient for the demand during a sensitive period. Using keywords related to a sensitive event to attempt to drive additional traffic. Claims that victims of a sensitive event were responsible for their own tragedy or similar instances of victim blaming. Claims that victims of a sensitive event are not deserving of remedy or support. Claims that victims from certain countries were responsible or deserving of a global public health crisis.
What are they prepping for?
That's the question. That's I think it's pretty easy and pretty transparent to see like maybe what they're responding to in a lot of ways, but there's definitely some like reading between the lines that can be done there for sure.
Do you think it's like that people are profiteering on situations like, for example, if you were to say something like, oh, what happened in Israel could happen to you, so buy this prep kit, what is that what they're trying to avoid, is people using situations to
maybe,
make
but
profit? Like why is this so vague?
Because that's what these organizations do, my friend. You know that.
What sucks is like people have no clue how big YouTube is and how vast, and like, or not YouTube alone, Google, excuse me. They own
Is that you
YouTube.
dinging or is that me?
I'm sorry. It's David Little messaging us.
Oh no, is he watching the live feed? He wants to comment on conspiracies and
Probably.
COVID.
But my point was, is Google is so damn huge that it's basically controlling most of the internet. In fact, there was about a year ago where the internet went down for about an hour, and I was like, why is nothing loading? And then it just went back to work, and then everybody was like, well, whatever, everything's fine. But what had happened was one of Google's registrars had where when you type in a web domain, it actually checks and makes sure it's a safe one, and then it goes to the website. Well, that had gone down, so basically most of the internet had went down.
I remember that. There was like a weird hiccup, and a lot of people didn't really register, and it was kind of just like this cute little anomaly. But like nowadays, it's not cute when the internet goes down. Like everything, I mean, people can lose millions of dollars or billions in a short outage of massive portions of the internet. Like it's a
well, not only
big
just
problem.
that, man. As far as like people's health, people's people are connected to the internet these days.
There's surgeons doing like remote surgery.
Let's hope they have a direct wire in and they don't have to do that.
Well, I mean, I don't know that they do if they're across the country.
The problem is though with these, I know this is AdSense, but this is stuff that will eventually be presented to all of like YouTube content, because like right now there are certain things you can't say. For example, COVID. People avoid it by calling it, the virus or something or whatever, and it'll get to the point to where, like us, we got a big slap on the wrist for mentioning something slightly negative towards Joe Biden and China, and then our channel took a dive. And I know we're an itty bitty channel, but like, 1 million views a month is a lot to us. And so it's just weird to think that we can't actually ponder and learn through discourse anymore. It's just, you're fed one thing, and it's frustrating.
Can I pivot and complain about something else that has to do with being fed one thing?
Yeah.
So I mentioned the Iowa caucuses last night.
By the way, please, who named it caucus? It's not.
All right, we just lost all legitimacy there. Now we can't have a serious conversation.
I'm sorry.
Okay, so I'm watching. We don't pay for cable. We typically use Roku in our house. Roku's been awesome. We like them. And I happened to notice that Roku was offering live coverage through NBC Now, which is like, it's technically NBC, but it's like their, I don't know, it's a different version. It's the Roku version. But I was highly annoyed at the experience of watching NBC's coverage of the Iowa caucus. It was exclusively Republican candidates, and for those that don't know, like Trump, came in as the leader by a landslide. He had over 50%.
But they called it when there was only 1% of the votes.
They called it very early, but that was all the news stations. And you could argue that it was based on polling and some other things, but
I argue that. I mean, anyways, well, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, DeSantis came in I think just over 20%. Nikki Haley was like 19%. Vivek was I think 9%. But here's what drove me nuts. They promoted like it was crack cocaine. They promoted this idea that Trump was going to speak. He was going to come out and he was going to talk and he was going to give this speech, and they're pumped about it. They had it on the little ticker at the bottom, and they were like, and so he comes out, and it's like, okay, hush, like we're going to hear the former president, and they let him speak for like 5 minutes, and just as you're getting into it, they cut away to their like on-scene reporter. They cut away to their anchor, who proceeds to tell you what you're doing and what you're watching and why this event is important. And then they cut to the on-scene reporter who is at Trump's speech and is telling you what he just said 30 seconds ago that he said directly to your like streamed into your television at home. And I found it highly irritating because they did this over and over for each candidate. Like Trump, they cut him off repeatedly. Then DeSantis came up and spoke, and they gave him even less time. And then they proceeded to tell me what I had just been listening to, and not just like, and we're back. That was DeSantis. Now we're going to move on. He's speaking in the background, and they're going to sit and they're going to tell you what he just said 30 seconds ago, and then they're going to spend 5 minutes telling you what he just said that you just listened to. And I guess what pissed me off so much about it is like, Trump especially is the front runner for the Republican Party. Like that was determined last night. I want to hear the man speak. Like I want to hear what he has to say. And I think the American people deserve to hear what he has to say, because we are so often force-fed this like filtered version of the news that is editorialized and is manipulated. And I don't need some no-name reporter who I've never heard of and don't care about to interrupt the former president of the United States and very possibly the future president of the United States to tell me what the hell he just said. Like, you need to get off my screen, be the news, and just stream this raw, unfiltered information into my home so I can make my own judgment call.
Yeah.
And I can process it my own way, and I can form my own opinions. It is a big, big disservice to the American people. It is a big disservice to the world in a lot of ways that the top leaders of our country do not get the appropriate airtime. And it's kind of funny. I found myself reflecting. And you remember C-SPAN? C-SPAN used to be kind of the joke for a long time because it was the most boring news, because they would literally set up a camera and it would just be a live feed.
And sometimes the camera would be tilted a little bit because no one cared or looked at the camera.
Or they'd go to lunch and like nobody turned off the camera and it was just sitting there. And I found myself longing for that. And maybe like that's the old man in me, but I found myself thinking, man, I would love nothing more than just an extended, uncut, unfiltered version of this information. Like, I want to hear what he's saying. I deserve to hear what he's saying. I don't need the mainstream media jumping in and telling me what I need to hear. And, and possibly even worse than that, there were many times where they would cut away in the midst of a speech, in the midst of a conversation, not to some urgent other news coverage, but to cut away to their pre-programmed like little 30-second updates to give you like bullshit pop culture news. like so-and-so did this or so-and-so did that, or somebody, like I don't care about it. I don't care about it. The premier leaders of our country are speaking and I want to listen to it,
Well, exactly.
It drives me nuts.
But corporate media, that's what I call it. Corporate media literally is a dying animal that's gasping for breath. That's what they're doing. They're trying to be relevant. They're trying to insert themselves
Last
in
time
things.
I had that, I field dressed it.
That's true. But the
Sorry,
thing
that's
is,
not
man, I mean, for example, when I'd even look at some of the stuff that we posted, we have some things that kind of did pretty good. And I look at that and then I'll see a post from MSNBC. And we actually would have more views than them. And I would chuckle and just be like, we're idiots on YouTube. And if we have something that has 200,000 or 300,000 plays or even 1 million, and then you go look at some of their stuff and it might have 20,000 plays. And it goes to show the way they operate is not relevant. So they're trying to inject themselves into a speech or something. But then again, when we were talking to Dr. Roberts, he was saying most people don't stop and think about what they just heard. They'll quickly go log onto a channel, CNN or Fox or the Daily Wire or someone on Twitter or X as they call it now. Then they'll say, what's my opinion? Not form the opinion. But the problem is, that's the issue, is Americans don't want to form their opinion. They want to be told what their opinion is. And that's where we got to, as, men, we got to sit down and think, what is our opinion of what we just heard? And that's why I think in the 2028, it's going to be channels like podcast, and it's going to be those people who are more influential.
In 2028? Is that what you said?
Yeah, in 2028, the next election.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Because right now, the mainstream media or corporate media is on a massive decline. And as the boomers, unfortunately, either retire or they pass away, it's going to die off. And they're frantically trying to get on the podcast styles, the shorts, the Instagram, the TikToks. And I think they're too late to it. And it just sucks because I'm with you, bro. I've seen it too many times where even if I'm sitting and I want to hear what Joe Biden has to say, because he is our president, I want to sit and hear what he just said, they'll cut it off. It's like, I don't want to hear I don't want to hear what you have to say. I want to hear what our president wants to say, even if it's fumbling.
And that's the thing. Like I should say, like, I want that for Joe Biden too. I want to hear the full speech. I want to hear, and so often we don't get that. It's I think that information needs to flow freely, in an unaltered form, so that we can actually hear what candidates and our leaders are saying, for better or worse, and not hear what the mainstream media wants us to perceive that they said.
Yeah.
And that's not how things run right now. We hear a very manipulated, editorialized version of our leaders' messaging, and it's a problem.
A slight change of subject, but I want to tell you what one of my uncles told me. My uncle, he's a pastor, and he's a very conservative man. So I was a little bit shocked.
Could you just like keeping in line with what we've been talking about, could you instead just give me the direct feed of what he said? You just have it on recording. I don't want to hear your version of it. I just want. See, I need to practice what I preach. We need to practice.
I wish I could. I wish I would have recorded it. But here's what my uncle told me one day. We're out to dinner, and I was just complaining about something that Biden had just done. He said, "I want to tell you something, Jake, and I want you to take this to heart." And he goes, "I don't agree with Joe Biden." And he goes, "But I want to tell you this. Every single day, I root for him." And I was like, "What?" He goes, "I pray for him." He goes, "I pray that God has him do the right decisions, what's right for the country and what's right for the family." He goes, "So I'm rooting for him every day that he does the right thing." Instead of like spewing hate or just getting angry towards something, he said, "I'm actually rooting that he makes the right decision. And I'm praying for him every day." And I was just like, damn. I feel like we almost need to do that sometimes for people who we disagree with, is like pray for them, root for them, that they make the right decisions, because the truth is we're affected either way. So
it's like we have young daughters, It's like one day, you know, let's hope this doesn't happen, but one day, you know, when our daughters bring home some guy that they want to date who's just an absolute mess.
Yeah.
And you're like, nope, he's not the guy. Nope, this is not happening. And you're not happy about it, but you find yourself at least like, all right, well, I am praying and hoping that this guy figures it out and gets his life together and is the good person he needs to be. Good person that my daughter deserves. You're rooting for that person, even though you're maybe
vehemently disagree, but you can root for him. I mean, because at the end of the day, we're not Democrats, Republicans, or Americans. I truly believe that we should be focused on what's best for the country. We just happen to believe two different ways. But I feel like we should be rooting for each other, that we make the right decision according to, a higher power, God.
Well, they always, what's the line that like, sometimes the thing that brings kids together, kids that are fighting in school, that brings them together is like the most is hating the lunch lady or something like that. And I think that we're in the midst of some very interesting global events and turmoil that I hope does not continue to escalate. But it's very possible that we may be, as a country, driven together out of necessity. And that was one of the things that I know we're dating ourselves here, but that was like one of the it was kind of the fallout and the ripple effect of September 11th, 2001 was the immediate period that followed, and the years that followed was very patriotic time that a lot of young people in this country don't remember or weren't a part of. Like, we remember that. We remember the intense fear and vulnerability that we felt in the days following the terrorist attacks on the World Trade Centers, but it was followed by this overwhelming sense of national pride and unity and sense of purpose and direction. And I'm not hoping for another event like that. But what I'm saying is that in the event that things continue to get twisted around the world, I think it's very possible that, we may turn to those next to us who we disagreed with and realize that we have more in common than we think right now.
Yeah. I mean, because at the end of the day, man, I don't want it to be a massive war that brings us together. I want us to make that decision together, because the reality is we have more in common with our neighbors than we do with a lot of people who hate the way we are, the way we live, the way we believe. And
speaking of war and global turmoil, did you see that China has a replica of the U.S. Navy's biggest, newest aircraft carrier that they've built out in the desert in northwest China?
Why?
It's for target practice. They've been open about this. In fact, they've been doing this for 10 years. I looked into this. And the U.S. has known about it. I think the general public has not known about it quite as much, but they started building mock-ups, outlines essentially in the desert of a few ships from the U.S. fleet years ago, a decade ago. And then they started doing aircraft carriers in the last couple of years.
How would they like it if we did a line out of Xi Jinping's house and started dropping shit on that? That's the thing is they've got to know that you can pick another ship's shape and practice.
No, it's specifically. I think they're trying to send a message for one thing, but yeah, it was the USS Gerald R. Ford, which, like I said, I think is the biggest and newest U.S. aircraft carrier. It's between the development and the construction, it's worth something like $18 billion, I think.
Wow.
And that doesn't include the 80 or 90 aircraft that it can carry on board,
right.
And the value of each one of those, of an F-35 Lightning or whatever. But they've built the outline.
Are we doing that? Are we doing that? And they're just saying, hey, we could do it too? Or
I mean, I don't know.
I just
Maybe like, Area 51 and some of the things that go on like in the Nevada desert and stuff. I mean, certainly we've done lots of tests. Maybe we hide it better. I don't know. But what they've done is built the basic like shape, and it is there's no getting it confused. Like you can look this up and see photos of what they've put together compared to an overhead shot of the Ford Carrier, and it's the same thing. But what they've done is they've stuck poles in the ground with sensors throughout, like around the entire perimeter of the ship, and then at certain like key locations on the deck of the ship and everything, so that it creates a three-dimensional like radar image. So what shows up on radar is like what would look like the real thing. And so they'll, I guess they use it for target practice, like aerial bombardments, aerial attacks. I'm assuming they're shooting probably missiles and dropping bombs that don't have warheads on them, just to like dial in, their a variety of different types of weapon systems and things. But
I'm pulling it up right
crazy.
now.
And I found something too.
Wow.
I found something too. I'm going to share this because I think this is kind of wild. This was an article. Let's see. Where'd it go?
They could have picked the less obvious shape, unless they're trying to send a message.
Oh, no. Yeah, I think it's pretty obvious. So a week ago, this was put out on some Arab news. It's in Arabic. The like part of the news network name is in Arabic, but a week ago, they report that a Chinese military expert, Wang Yunfei, who is a researcher at the China National Defense Policy Research Association, and an expert in naval operations, he stated that replica was being used for target practice, and that China is committed to simulating attacks on aircraft carriers. And so listen to this. He also said that China, having already prepared a simulated Ford-class carrier in the desert, is, quote, now waiting for the real Ford-class carriers to come and make their home on the seabed of China's East and South China Seas. So basically, that's a big, like, fuck around and find out.
Whoa.
Well, it's not an overt threat. It's if you fuck around, you'll find out. Like that's what was said.
Are they trying to posture for what's that island?
For Taiwan?
For Taiwan, yes. Forgive me.
I mean,
are they posturing for Taiwan?
A lot of that.
Is that it?
Probably. But it's not good. Like none of this is good.
I mean, but the reality is their economy collapses if we stop producing stuff there, and if we stop purchasing, like their economy's dead. Our economy
is in big trouble, like in other ways, if this goes south too, because right. Everything we consume is from China. So
yeah, but half that shit isn't needed. Like just just a lot of the stuff on Amazon that people buy is more of a compulsory, people lonely shopping as they call it.
You can't use DJI drones anymore in the federal government. They're beginning to ban that.
Well, that goes back to even like TikTok, if they...
For those that don't know, DJI, which is they make fantastic products.
Fantastic products.
We use them all the time. Drones, microphones, a variety of products that they have. But supposedly, what's the story, Jake, I'm sorry I interrupted you, but like they are concerned that the Chinese government could...
backdoors.
Like backdoors and could transmit some of that data. So they don't want Department of Homeland Security in the U.S. using it. They don't want basically any kind of sensitive sites being captured in the viewfinders and in the cameras of these drones. The GPS, like geolocation system, so that the satellites know. Don't these drones communicate with the satellites? Isn't that you know more about them than I do?
Oh yeah, they communicate with satellites, and I mean a lot of it too is like, everything's already on Google Earth anyways. It's yeah. At the end of the day, man, this sucks. We should be focusing them on how to grow our countries together and how we can produce stuff better. not be bombing, carrier-shaped targets in the desert, because that's not going to scare us. Our Navy's 10 times bigger than theirs. And yes, they got a lot of men. But I guess the real issue is, are they thinking smarter than we are? Where we've got a bigger army, but they're in every product, every device, every ring camera, every circuit board that's produced from that area. Do they have a backdoor into literally everything? So the weird times that we live in, man. And I just hope that something like this isn't what brings our country together, like it did back in 9/11. But we should probably wrap it up, man. It's 10 o'clock.
Yeah, it's time.
Anything else you want to hit real quick before we leave?
No, I feel like I got all my griping out. I told you this was going to be like a kind of a
gripe fest,
like old man curmudgeon-y type of set of topics that I was going to bring to the table. But it's just been several things that kind of I have found to be great annoyances lately. And
you are going through a detox, so and it's
right,
political season, so it's
my parasite cleanse.
Yeah, and it's really, really cold. So
and there's a freaking sick rooster in my bathroom.
Oh.
I'm just prickly.
I'm also doing a sugar detox at the moment, and I'm at 1 week today. No sugar, period. Like it's nothing.
You've done those before, right?
Yeah. Last time I stopped for a Mr. Beast podcast where we ate a bunch of his chocolate.
Didn't you feel like sick after coming off of your sugar fast and then eating a bunch of sugar?
Sick. Well, I've already lost 11 pounds in a week.
That kind of doesn't sound healthy.
It doesn't, but like I'm telling you, man, I would drink just so much Dr. Pepper. I would have always just like tons of like sweeteners in my coffees. I would eat like cake. My wife loves cake. And so we always have a cake here. And I'm like, oh yeah, one extra piece is fine. The next thing you know, I'm like, yeah. And I do have heart issues, so I got to watch myself, but no joke. All I am is just eating steak. I'm eating eggs and anything that just doesn't, like nothing starchy. And I lose so much weight so quick.
How do you
weird.
Feel good?
I feel light. Like I know it's only 11 pounds, but like I feel great. I've been finding I don't need as much sleep. Last night I only had about 6 or 7 hours, and I feel wonderful. Whereas lately I've been like needing like 8 or 9 hours to feel good. But this is definitely a new format, Dave. It's weird not having you in the same room with you, but until we figure out our new shop or our new location.
Yeah. So like, do you want to maybe just, I guess really quick, I know we're wrapping up, at like the reason for this shift, like you guys, I don't want to, I guess, speak for you, but you guys made, I think some wise decisions to get rid of a bunch of overhead.
Yeah.
We were previously, doing this thing in the basement of your salon, and
I'll complain about that for 30 seconds. Basically, my wife had a pretty big salon, and we had like 20 employees, and everything was going good. And it came time to actually renew our lease, and he wanted like a 3 or 5 year lease. I get it. He wants to lock someone in. And we negotiated on a price, and pretty much towards the last minute, he came in and was like, nope. And he doubled the price. And we had like, a month to get out. And so I was like, fuck it, we're going to get out. And so we had to help find jobs for all of the employees. And we had to move absolutely everything out, sell absolutely everything, because I didn't want to double the rent price. And so my wife had to downsize.
But you guys, but that's not like the only, just like that was the straw that broke the camel's back. But you guys had come to the realization, I think, a while ago that
the hair industry is a broken industry, and it's basically controlled by L'Oreal. And the percentage of success, we were at a meeting one time and someone was like, 5% is a good profit margin. And I'm like, what? Like I was already past 5%, feeling like it wasn't enough.
Right, that's why you were there at that conference.
Yeah, and I looked over at my wife and I was like, hold up, these people aren't making 5%, and why are they in the business? Why are they in the business? And then basically the L'Oreal people come back and they're always like, well, it's just sell more product. And I'm like, well,
Yeah.
you've doubled the price, and I'm sorry. And so basically, the hair industry is a bit of a joke these days. And unfortunately, I feel like it's run by a lot of big corporations that have a squeeze on the entire thing. And most of the money is going to the banks from that 3.75% that they take. The amount of taxes they're taking out.
For like transaction fees you're
Oh,
talking
yeah.
about?
A lot of people don't know that the actual corporations, like the salon, we have to pay taxes on our employees' tips.
Yeah. Well, and like a lot of retail businesses, you guys had to fight through COVID lockdowns. You had to fight through
Oh, yeah.
all the supply chain issues and price increases as of late. And, I think because we've talked a lot about this like offline, you and I just, I think you've come to the wise conclusion that you had been operating with all this overhead that maybe in a previous iteration, like in the past, this business model made sense, but I think you guys, made the wise decision to streamline, your company and streamline your offering ultimately. And
when it's not making
shift.
profit, shut it down. It's just
Well, it's not shut down. You've pivoted now, and
Pivoted,
Reen, your wife, is doing kind of a solo thing, but at a very high level, and she's gonna do some.
It's just
she's
too
do some
much
coaching
overhead.
and training too, right?
Yeah, she's going to be coaching, training, and she'll honestly make 10 times the money and less headache. And she'll be with her kids more often, which is more important to us.
But that is why this all looks different, because we had such a great space in your salon. But we're still working. We're working on like what that next space is. We have found, just kind of being transparent really quick with everybody. You have 2 young kids. I have a young daughter. Our wives have podcasts as well. We in this, despite what a lot of people think, this is not our full-time gig. Far from it, in fact. So we have been kind of exploring what is the best format to do this, and what is the way that we can bring the most value without having to input an enormous effort every week as far as like finding childcare and
because I want you hear about creator burnout all the time. I mean, look at it right now. 3 major YouTubers quit within the last 2 weeks, and it comes down to the fact that they're like,
it wasn't you and me, right?
No,
we weren't
God,
2
no.
of them, right?
No, but it's some pretty popular ones that you're just like, whoa, they quit. They have huge channels, 1.5, 2 million, 5 million subscribers, and they're like, why'd you quit?
Who are these people? Do you know? Do you know their names offhand, or is it just kind of something you noticed?
No, I'll send them to you, and I'll put them in the short if I make a short from this or clip. But I don't remember their names. But you've seen their stuff. They're big YouTubers, and they've quit just because the grind is so hard. YouTube promotes people who do weekly stuff. And that sounds easy to maybe someone who's watching it, but the amount of production that you have to do, you have to sometimes, be writing stuff months in advance just to turn around and have it and be on to the next project. And you can burn out really quick. Yeah. And so that's why we're trying to find something because I want to be doing this, 6 years from now, 7 years from now, and having fun doing it. Yeah. But I would rather have a slower growth to success than basically burn out any energy I have left. So.
Right. Yeah. And so that's why, you guys will see probably our backgrounds change a few times and kind of the format of how we do this. But, at the end of the day, it just as far as we're concerned, it doesn't really matter. Last few podcasts we've done, like with presidential candidate, Dr. Roland Roberts, with, Dwayne Knoll, the Dry Creek Wrangler, we were really fortunate to travel and do some really cool productions where we were setting up on site, on location, and man, that was really cool. But it also that comes with its own set of challenges. So I think that you and I have talked we would like to do many of those in 2024, and we will continue to. But at the same time, we're looking for ways to continue to bring all you guys the best guests that we can. Again, in full transparency, we have several people that we've been in communication with. We're just kind of in the process of determining whether they come to us, we go to them, or we bring them in remotely. So we're going to continue bringing in some really great content, really great guests in 2024. We've been doing a lot of planning. a lot of kind of business planning, brainstorming for 24 and 25. Got, kind of an overwhelming list of projects and tasks, but it's going to be awesome. So if you're new to this channel, if you're new to us, I would say this is like just the beginning. This is very, very much the beginning. What are we, Jake? 36, I think, episodes in, which is like nothing.
Yeah. Nothing.
But it feels like, we've done so much already, and we have so much more than this planned and in not just planned, in the works. It's mapped out, and we're already taking steps. So stick with us. It's going to be a ride this year. This is, I think, when we're coming into 24 with some momentum, some inertia, and it's going to be a good ride. So
yeah. Well, thanks for doing this, Dave. I know it's late at night. You got a sick chicken. You're on a parasite cleanse.
I'm grumpy. My kid was grumpy.
Your kid was grumpy. Maybe it was a good thing that
I ate disgusting liver like 2 nights ago.
Listen, man, I'm excited about the future. I really am. I'm excited about the growth you and I will have as humans, as dads, as men. And I think it'd be fun for people to come along for it. So,
for sure. You want to take us out?
Yeah, man, just, if anything, think for yourself. Do your research. As much as people out there say, just trust the science. Well, let's vet some of that too. Science is wonderful. I love science. But at the same time, don't hate your neighbor so much. We're Americans. Let's be rooting for one another. And I hate corporate media. Yeah. That's
so
it.
plain nice, except for the media, is that what you're saying?
Except for the media. Except for them. They suck so bad. Because they make all... Here, hold on.
Wait, I thought we were signing off.
Corporate media makes all their money from advertisement. So they will never talk bad about who advertises on their channels. You know what 70% of their advertisement revenue comes from?
Yes, I do. You want to know?
Big pharma.
That's what I was going to say. What's weird is like I said, I don't watch TV. See, we're about to get into a whole nother thing, and I'm not going to do it. But I will just say that, again, we don't get cable, we don't watch TV. But like when I travel and I stay in a hotel, I will turn on typically the news. But I am always reminded and astounded at how many pharmaceutical commercials that like are playing on every break, a good, well, to your point, probably like 70% of the time it's some sort of big pharma ad, and it's kind of crazy. The idea that like these organizations can even advertise to you in the first place, and then you're supposed to go talk with your doctor about an ad that you saw and how you want that drug. That's a weird.
Well, it's also
because,
like, who's watching TV. It's older people. And so it feels a bit predatory.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Like, you can't go to your doctor and say, like, hey, my neck is, and I know this because I've been down this road extensively myself. I've got bulging discs, and at one point I herniated a disc in my neck. And
bulging disc. Okay.
Did I not clarify? That's a different condition that you go to your doctor about. But I pretty severe pain at times. This is nothing new to you. I complain about it all the time. But you go to your doctor, you're like, hey, I've got this pretty serious recurring thing I've been dealing with for a matter of years. Like, I think it's time that we deal with this. And I'd like to like see what's going on in there and get an MRI. The last one I had like 10 years ago showed these bulging discs. It's only gotten worse. But yet this becomes suddenly a conversation that is dictated then by the insurance company. And they don't want to cover the cost of the MRI. They want you to do physical therapy first, which seems like not what you want to do when someone's complaining with severe recurring neck problems. Let's go, let's not image it. Let's not look at it. Let's just put you through a whole bunch of physical activities. But it's a problem. It's like the idea that you can go to your doctor from seeing a TV commercial and self-diagnose and say, I want this prescription drug. versus like, yeah, hey, my neck is screwed up and I'd just like to see what's in there so that
Yeah.
me, you, and any other professional can determine the best course of action.
Well, our medical industry
problem.
doesn't cure anything. It seems to just prolong or mask symptoms. So we got to wrap this up because
You sure you don't want to just like go on about the medical industry? Like we've complained about mainstream media. Do you want to talk about Big Pharma?
I do because, but we can't. We don't have enough time. We've been.
Cut this out anyway.
Yeah, but then just at the end of the day, I'm excited about the future, and I really thank everybody for listening and enduring with us two idiots as we try to figure things out and chase our own mountains. As corny as it is to say that, but I really do. I'm excited about 24, 25, and just the growth that I'm going to have, the people we get to meet, and come along for the ride.
I love it.
Cool.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Jake.